before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our channel. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you click on the bell notification so that you get notified of all of our upcoming videos. All right, we're live here at Real Estate Life 360, and I have on today with me Kyle Jasey with Kyle Jasey's Capital. Is that the name of your company?
Yes, it's Jasey Capital Group.
Jasey Capital Group. Okay. So I have Kyle here, and he is he's an organizer of probably one of the biggest. I wouldn't say I don't know all the meetup groups out there, but he's got one of the biggest out there in New Jersey and New York.
Yes, I'm comfortable with
that. Well, I mean, you got a pretty good turnout every month. That I have to admit. And you got a pretty decent number of people that come to your events. And just give me a little background as to how you got started with with what you're doing, and just give me a little background as to why you decided to do these meetups. And I think that would be very interesting to know.
Okay. So I got into real estate about 5 or 6 years ago. I was working for a friend of mine's title insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing that and trying to find clients. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, a guy I grew up with, and he said basically, I have a title insurance company, but I'll use you since we're friends, but you got to help me out. I need people so he was a house flipper.
Okay.
And he basically said, I need you to help me out. I need you to help me find people with money. And so, I kind of thought about it and I said, okay, I got to imagine that the people that have money are looking for people who need money. So maybe I could bring the two groups together.
Nice.
So that kind of spawned the idea of starting our group, Flippers and Funders. And I was doing title at the time. I eventually got into the funding side of it, but that was kind of, how the whole thing started.
Nice. Okay. And so when did you start that Flippers and Funders? And I would assume you started the New Jersey one first, because I know you have a couple of them.
Yeah, that was our first one. I think it was probably about 6 years ago, maybe 6.5 years ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had a background in events. I'd done a million events up to that point, just in other industries.
Okay.
So it was something I knew how to do. And I didn't have a ton of capital at the time, so I knew how to kind of put on an event at minimal cost. And
right.
So that's why it was kind of a natural fit for me. But then, so from there, the first group was in South Orange, and I'm from South Orange, and kind of worked because Essex County is naturally a pretty busy area for real estate.
Right.
And then we just kind of started expanding from there.
Gotcha. And that's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you about the meetups. But so you have a meetup group in New Jersey, and I think New York City. And what other areas do you have, or are you in your meetups groups?
We do Essex County, New Jersey, Hudson County, New Jersey. So we're in West Orange, Jersey City, New York City, Brooklyn, Asbury Park, and starting in March or April, we'll be meeting every month in Philadelphia as well.
Nice. I mean, you got, and we were just talking before, you literally have a meetup every single week or more.
Yeah.
And I'm always getting emails from you. So
sorry about all the
no, that's fine. No, I mean, it's I like to, as much as I like to go to, all of them, I can't, as at the end of the day, we just gotta pick and choose our, the things that we go to, because, I have kids, and we both live busy lives, right? So so on average, how many people come to these meetup groups?
So it really kind of depends. I would say on the low side, 25 to 30.
Okay.
On the high side, anywhere up to like 150 to 175. So it really depends on the group and the night.
Okay. So, and then on average, which the one with the highest group, which one is that? Would that be the New York or New Jersey, or?
Probably our Essex County group and our Jersey City group. They're both usually around 150 or so.
Okay, nice. I mean, that's an awesome number, with the amount of attendance. So do you personally attend other meetup groups? Because now I would assume that's very difficult because of the number of, meetups that you actually run.
I don't very often. I'll do it. So as I was saying before, we got on.
Mhm.
Our schedules kind of, we'll do 3 months on and then 1 month off.
Right, right.
And it's funny, we didn't used to do it that way, and so we kind of went like 2 years straight of just never missing a month. And I took a month off, or we took a month off, and it wasn't even a month off. It was, we were doing an education event. We're just kind of trying something different.
Right, right.
It was hilarious because I was still sending emails and everything. And then when I saw everybody at the next month's event, they were like, "Oh my God, like, you all right? Like, we heard you were sick." And I was still sending emails. It's not like I didn't do anything. I had a big education event.
Right, right.
Um, yeah, I mean, the month off is great, though. It kind of gives us a minute to catch our breath and think about any changes we want to make and that sort of thing. And we're always kind of tweaking. But the other thing, just to go back for a second, I do find that, I mean, all of the groups when I start them are small, and
Mhm.
they're always, 20, 30 people. And
Right, right.
I actually, there's aspects of that I like more, in that when it's small, generally if it's under 50 people, 50 to 60 people, we'll go around the room and let everybody introduce themselves and say who they are, what they do, who they're looking to meet. And it's nice, and that it kind of brings the group together and we joke around. And so it's a nice way to do it. It's just not possible once you get up to higher numbers. So some
Gotcha.
more events we still do that way.
Mhm.
Really just Brooklyn and Jersey Shore, but the other ones have kind of gotten to be too many people for it. But
Gotcha.
I find sometimes people will come to the events and they're very caught up on how many people are there. And in reality, how many people can you actually talk to in a night? The
That's
difference
true.
is how many people you're going to meet at a 25-person event or a 150-person event. There's no difference. So.
Gotcha. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Um, so so today, the main, what I wanted to talk about today, with you, because you've run quite a number of meetups, and I don't know how you do it, because I know I ran, I've co-organized a meetup with Glenn for about 9 years, and let me tell you, it's a lot of work, and I'm sure it's a lot of work for you, to
I have
run.
3 kids yet.
True. But I wanted to talk about, how, from the point of view of, somebody that's maybe just starting out, or, in the same boat you were, back 6 years ago. Do you think, it's a good idea right now to start their own meetup? Because I feel like there's so many meetups nowadays.
Right.
And I wanted to ask your advice, as because you do have quite a number. I mean, not having more meetups, it may compete with you, but let me just ask you, your advice, or your recommendation as to somebody that's just starting. Should they do a meetup on their own?
Generally, no, and that's not just because I don't want the competition.
Right. Okay.
Because I mean, I've had lots of friends who started meetups and that sort of thing. I mean, it depends, but it's a lot of work,
Hmm.
especially starting out, and it really just depends. I mean, I think at all times in business, when you're in business for yourself, you have to be thinking about what's the most efficient use of your time. You know,
Right.
and so running one meetup is going to require the same amount of energy as probably attending 4 or 5 meetups. So if you can find meetups that provide what you're looking for, it's better to just go to those and just be super consistent about it. So that's one thing I always tell people when I meet them for the first time at my events is I'll say, look, like, whatever events you go to, find an event where, there are people in the room that can add value to your business, and
Right.
you can also help. But um, just equally as important, you want to consistently go to whatever events you're going to, because
Yeah.
if you just bounce around, you're not going to build relationships with people.
Yeah. No.
And so, especially if you're a service provider, you want to be like the person at the groups that does that thing, because then everyone will get to know you and they'll refer business to you. And so, like, for example, the accountant that comes to our events every month, Ron Jankowicz, he's been coming
Hmm.
for years. He sponsors the events. and Ron's everybody's go-to accountant for all of their real estate accounting needs. And so he's just the guy. We're all friends with Ron. He's my accountant. And so I think consistency in building those relationships is really important. It doesn't come generally after just one meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to follow up with people, and you can meet them outside of the groups, but I think it's just a better way to approach it.
Yeah, I'm gonna tag Ron on this and then let him know he talked to you. But no, I totally agree, because at the end of the day, like, I do these live casts, and why do I do them every single week? I don't just, I've committed to it, and I'm gonna commit to it. And so, everybody has the same number of hours in a week, in a day, and so you have to pick and choose. But I mean, that's and I know that a lot of people, I think, try to start these meetups, and they don't understand it's a lot of work.
It's at least a part-time job.
Exactly.
And you're generally not really compensated for it. I mean, you get business out of it, but
Right.
it's a huge upfront cost and time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, from the main thing that I wanted to ask you is about the let's dig into the world, networking. Can you, I mean, give me your version of what you define networking. I mean, if that's, if you have a definition, or if do you have a certain way that you define networking?
I mean, I guess I just look at it as going out and meeting people and interacting with people who are in your business world, and
Hmm.
so, and it's not always just I think people sometimes get a little too focused on, like, if you're a real estate investor, like, oh, okay, I got to go out and find wholesalers and realtors. And it's like, yeah, you do, but there are other people that can probably help you find deals. There are other people that are going to be able to refer business to you. And so there's a benefit to kind of meeting and interacting with everybody that's in that kind of ecosystem. So, yeah, I think, but yeah, I mean, I think you have to be careful about it too as you pick your groups. It's like me, when I first started doing these groups, I had a lot of people that wanted me to do like these BNI groups and that sort of thing. And from a time commitment standpoint, it just wasn't really worth it to me, because I was like, if I'm going to spend all this time going every week and all that, I could just start a new group, and it would be 50 people in the room that are in my direct industry versus, one or two people that could potentially refer business to me. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's a tough challenge too, because as you start to grow, and you start expanding your network, you have to pick and choose, where you put your time into, and it's a tough decision, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they'll go out and they'll just go to all this stuff and then they burn themselves out.
Hmm.
I think you have to know going in that, I mean, like with anything with business, it's just going to take time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get discouraged, because they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to all these networking events and I'm not getting anything out of it." It's like, well, maybe you should be more targeted. You should find events that are better for what you're looking for, and then be consistent and just go to those.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Um, any um, any networking, any, like, I guess, etiquette, any like, I guess, what etiquettes or tips do you have in terms of networking for people that come to your meetup? One pet peeve of mine is when I go to network meetings, or I give people business cards, and the next thing I do is they just shove me into their CRM,
Uh,
or and so that's one pet peeve of mine, that I think that's just the wrong way to do that. But I mean, give me a couple of suggestions or tips that you would recommend to people that go to these networking meetings.
um, I mean, I can see why people do the CRM thing,
Yeah.
but I also take your point that it can be annoying.
Yeah.
I'm constantly unsubscribing from things like that.
Yeah.
If you're going to blast people, you should make sure it's with stuff that they want to hear about, that's relevant. Um,
Right.
I think another way to stay in front of people is just to go to these events regularly, like I was saying.
Hmm.
Um, and also, put them into your CRM, but actually reach out to them. I text message people all the time. That seems to work for me. it's a little bit more personal. Um, Other stuff just for events. I mean, I think you want to be aggressive when you go to these things.
Mhm.
I see a lot of people that will come and they'll kind of stand around like they're waiting for someone to talk to them. And I think maybe it's just because in most social situations it's like that, you know?
Okay.
And so it's like, look, you're not at the bar, you're not, working up the courage to go talk to some girl or guy. It's like everybody here wants you to talk to them. Like,
Right, right, right.
yeah, they don't care what you look like or how you're dressed. They want to grow their business.
Yeah.
And so, definitely that. Don't stand around. As soon as you get there, just start introducing yourself to people. Uh,
Mhm.
Try to take a little bit of extra time to understand what they really do. One thing that, one of my pet peeves is when people come and it's like they're just rapid fire meeting people just to meet people, but
Mm.
you can tell it's all just completely on the surface. They're not taking any time to really understand what the other person's doing. And so, one of the best ways to get referrals for yourself is to give referrals to other people. And you can only do that when you actually understand what other people do. And,
Gotcha.
you
No,
know,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
yeah, I mean, I probably spend too long with people at events.
Mhm.
But, I don't rush conversations at events because if you go to an event and you get one good contact, then that's a successful event. So,
Right. So you're saying basically, I mean, that's a good suggestion is to just go with the intent to just meet one person, maybe even just spend time with them to get to know them and to actually help that individual is better than trying to meet 10 people that you add no value to them or to, not even to get to know them.
yeah, I mean, you want the person to remember you, and you want to remember them and what they do. So if you're just going rapid fire through the group just for the sake of getting as many business cards as you can, so you can plug them into your CRM, you're just gonna have a bunch of people unsubscribe from your CRM
That's
and
true.
make no real relationships.
Gotcha. No, that's a good point. Um, and is there, I guess, any, I guess, I think one of the things that is very interesting about your meetup, and I don't know if you still do it, is that you actually give out all of the people's information that did come to the meetup. Do you still
Yeah.
do that?
Yep.
Okay. And what was the logic behind that, or was there any logic, or you just said, "Hey, I'm just going to do that"?
uh, yeah, no, it was more calculated than that, or more thought out, I guess. So our approach with the meetup
Hmm.
is, I mean, obviously we want to get business out of it for, our lending business,
Right.
but it was also, we want, what kind of a meetup event would we want to go to, and how can, like, what would make the best event? And so
Mm,
as long as we can do things that don't hurt our primary business of lending, but, they make the event better, then we're going to do it. So the
gotcha.
thing is, like, you go to, I feel like a lot of people go to these events and you feel pressured to meet everybody. And that just kind of leads to a lot of rushed interactions, like we were talking about. So
Hmm.
it's more like come to the event, relax, meet people. And afterwards, we send out the information. We really encourage people to reach out to anyone that could, that they might have missed at the event.
No, it's a good philosophy. I like that. I like that. And I actually like the fact that, I meet you at these events, but I don't feel like I really, get to talk, because we're so busy with trying to, meet people.
Right.
So I appreciate you taking the time to get on today. Um, let me,
Thank
um,
you, by the way. This is great.
yeah. Um, so with your company right now, how long have you been doing this lending side of the business? Was it your wife or was it you that was doing the lending before, or who did that first?
It was me.
That was you? Okay. So your wife is actually part of, or you guys are working together on this, or?
Yeah, so
Okay.
so my wife works with me. She's also actually a professional organizer, so
Oh, okay.
she does that as well. But she helps me out with the business side, and she's always at the front desk at the events, checking people in, and
Right, right.
it's good.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. Definitely helps to do it. But I know there's probably challenges with that as well.
No, yeah, it's just been nothing but smooth sailing.
All right. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Whenever you work with your spouse, there's always going to be difficulties, but it's good. I'll hear people complain. They'll be like, "Oh, my wife's annoyed that I'm out at all these events and da da da." I'm like, dude, just bring her with you. That's
That's true. Yeah, bring her along, right? All right. So, I don't. If there's any questions, anybody has while watching this, or while they're um, watching this after the live cast, you can put your comments below, and I'm sure Kyle or myself will chime in and respond to them. Um, so usually at the end of these interviews, I go into like a very social aspect, okay? And I'm just trying it for the first time,
okay.
and I wanted to ask. I'm gonna do two segments. The first one is the top three, and so on this segment, I'm gonna ask you, what are your top three advices to a new person that's starting out in the real estate business? And just kind of like and I didn't tell you ahead of time, but I just wanted to tell you, what are the top three advice that you would give to somebody that's starting a new real estate business, whether it's whether they're a wholesaler or rehabber, from your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I would say doing the events, one of the cool things about it is I meet so many people that
Hmm.
it gives you a good vantage point to see what works and what doesn't work. So I would say one of the things I always tell people is I usually suggest that people start with wholesaling just because one of the toughest things when you're starting in real estate is finding your own deals, because it's kind of like the joke that I always make is the best thing about real estate is that there's no barrier to entry. The worst
Hmm.
thing about real estate is that there's no barrier to entry. And so people that are really in it, if you're a realtor and you get a lot of good leads, um, you're not going to give those leads to somebody that you just met, because generally you're going to make the same money. And so you're going to go to the person that buys 10 houses a year in that town.
Hmm.
And so, sometimes you can get someone, if you're a new investor, you can get someone to take a chance on you. But I think it's best to figure out how to find deals yourself. And then you can either keep it for yourself or you can send it to someone else, and it's a good way to kind of earn money while you're learning the business. You're learning how to run the numbers and you're building connections and relationships. So, so I guess the first thing is I would say usually start with wholesaling.
Hmm.
The second thing is I meet a lot of people that they just have too large of an area they're trying to cover at first for like new
Okay.
investors. And so, people will come to my events, and especially the ones where we're kind of like going around the room, and they'll
Hmm.
say like, "I'll do anything in North Jersey." Like that's a terrible idea.
or the whole New Jersey, right?
Yeah, yeah, or I'll do any of the boroughs, or I'll blah blah blah. Blah. And it's just not a good idea because it's too much area to cover, and
Uh-huh.
you're not going to get to learn any area particularly well, and you're not going to build enough relationships. So I always say, pick a town. Get to know everyone that's involved in real estate investing in that town. Get to know all the other investors. Other investors can be a great source of deals, and then get to know all the realtors and the attorneys and everyone. Give it 6 months. If you're getting no traction, then maybe add another town or two. But
Gotcha.
you want to keep it super targeted.
Mm.
And the last thing I usually try to tell people at the events is it's going to take a lot longer than you're probably thinking.
Got it. Hmm.
It's not uncommon at all for someone to call me on the phone today and say, "Hey, I'm a new real estate investor. I'm trying to do this or that. I have a deal I'm looking at. Can I get a proof of funds?" And I'll say, "Okay, sure. We'll talk about the deal a little bit. If it makes sense, then we'll do it." But it's not uncommon at all that it takes a year before we ever end up doing a deal,
Yeah.
maybe a year and a half. And so
Hmm.
it's it's just a lot, and you're trying to start a new career. You're probably doing it part-time, and it's going to take a long time, and it's going to be super discouraging at moments, and very often you'll think you finally found the deal, and it won't appraise. And usually I think one of the things that's really tough about it is that it's hard to track your progress and to know that you're making progress when there's so much rejection and you're just beat out on deals and this and that. But I think what most people don't realize is like you're climbing the hill the entire time.
Yeah. Hmm.
There's just nothing to reassure you. But it's like even if you find a deal and the numbers make sense and it just appraises a little bit too low, you're so close at that point. You're probably only a month or two away from finding the real deal. And
Yep.
it's unfortunate in that a lot of people, I think, quit around that point when they're actually very close, you know?
Right.
And then I always say that it's like there's this weird thing in real estate. It's kind of like once you get your first deal, like I always tell people, you really don't want to put all your money into your first deal because the second deal is going to come so much faster. And
Yeah.
you're like, where was this? Like, where was this? Like a month ago when I was crying myself to sleep, and then it's almost like it just like sends something out into the real estate world, and you're more confident, and everybody else sees you close on something, and they're like, oh, like this person's a real deal, and so you go from being like at the absolute bottom of everyone's list, and now it's like you're at the top of everyone's list. And if you put all your money into that deal, well, now you're gonna have to wait,
Yeah.
to kind of cool off. So
No, but your last advice, I mean, that the last thing what you said is so true. I mean, I think a lot of people, get discouraged, and because you're in you face rejection literally every day when you're making offers or when you're making phone calls, and it can get discouraging, And so I appreciate that last advice.
yeah,
Um, so last section is let's get social. All right. So let's get social. I'm gonna ask some, questions. And just gonna, you know, just blur out, whatever comes in your mind. All right.
okay.
So, favorite social platform?
Instagram.
Instagram. Everybody seems to like Instagram. All right. Favorite TV Netflix show?
Ooh. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I like Narcos a lot.
What's that? I never heard that one.
It's good. It's all about like the drug trade. It starts off in Colombia, it moves to,
Okay.
but it's kind of based on the history of it. So
Gotcha.
I think it's fairly accurate. I'm not really sure. But
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sure there will be like a million other shows that I wish I'd said. Yeah.
All right. So, favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I don't know. It's a tough one. If I were to give you like a top five, what would it be? I don't know. I'm thinking Shawshank Redemption just because it's in my. Oh, you know what? It's a great movie. It's very underrated that a lot of people don't know about. You ever see Pirate Radio?
Pirate Radio. Is that with? Oh, is that with?
Seymour Hoffman, a
Yeah.
bunch of
Is that?
dudes.
It has to do with the football game. Football, right? Is it?
No.
No.
It takes place in like I want to say like 1960s or 70s London, and they banned rock and roll, and so it's like they buy like an old cargo ship and or like a decommissioned military vessel or something, and they park just like in international water, so like a mile off the coast, and so it's a bunch of like I guess DJs, and they all live together and they broadcast to the mainland. So
I'm not familiar with that.
yeah, I don't know. Those are probably like top 10 maybe for me, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, hey, I'm gonna look into it. So let's coffee, tea, or water.
Coffee, tea, or water? I drink water. I'm like a 1 cup of coffee a day guy,
All
and
right.
and then water the rest of the day, and 1 cup of orange juice. That's if I don't have my cup of orange juice, I lose my mind.
Really
Um,
interesting. Um, iPhone or Android?
iPhone, but I'm not a huge phone guy, so I like it for it's relatively simple and
You
I've
like a flip?
had.
Maybe you should get the flip phone now. All right. So favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate chip cookie dough with chocolate sauce on top.
All right. Nice. Name something from your bucket list.
For my bucket list, um, what do I like to do? That's a tough one.
I'm making you think today, huh?
Yeah, this is rough. Um, I would like to go on safari.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. All right, all right. So last one is, if you were an animal, who would you be?
That makes me. Are you a Seinfeld fan?
I watch it, but probably not enough to know that answer. But
Um, yeah, there's a great episode where George is interviewing like students for some foundation scholarship, and you know the kids are they're giving like these like very professional answers, and George is like, "Quick, what's your favorite animal?" And the kid's like, "Frog." He like closes the folder. He's like, "Frog is wrong." My favorite animal. What's my favorite animal? I think I'll say my favorite animal at the moment, just because I find it fascinating. Let's say coyote.
Coyote. I got one from one of our listeners. Is, would you rather have an extra finger or an extra toe?
Oh, extra toe, 100%.
Right? Because you can't see it, right?
Yeah, if you had an extra finger, you'd be explaining that to people every single day of your life.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. So, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I appreciate you taking the time today to get on Livecast. And thank you, Aubrey, for that question. And, um, but anyway, so I thought these live casts are great, because that way you get to know you better. The people that that you've probably seen faces of you. I mean, I've known you for quite some time, and I think that this is probably the first time I really sat down and kind of got to know you personally. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Thank you for inviting me to do this. This is great.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'll see you at the next meet. When's your next meetup coming up?
Tomorrow night at Hyatt House in Jersey City.
Okay.
So it's really cool. It's we're on the terrace level, so it's just one down from the roof, but it's like really beautiful views of New York City, and we're doing it with Clear Skies Title as our sponsor, and my company Jasey Capital Group. We're doing $1,000 open bar. It's a free event.
Nice,
so,
nice.
Yeah, people should come out. It should be a nice event.
And if people want to find you, what's the best place to find you, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, through our website, jccapitalgroup.com.
Okay.
And yeah, that's probably the best way. I mean, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and stuff too, but mostly just the website has my cell phone number. That's always the best way to get me.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kyle.